Hi, I'm Grace Walker. I'm 29 years old, and I live in a quiet little town called Brookhaven. Not the kind of place you see in movies or travel blogs, just a few sleepy streets, a diner that closes early, and a handful of people who wave even when they don't know you. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, and that's something I've built for myself. I don't have a big following or a fancy career. I'm a floral preservationist. I take old bouquets, wedding flowers, funeral arrangements, memorial pieces, and press them into something lasting. Something that turns a fleeting moment into a memory you can hold. Most days I'm alone with dried petals and silence. And honestly, I've learned to be okay with that. Because silence doesn't hurt. People do. 3 days ago, I got an envelope in the mail. Cream-colored, lined with gold foil. My name written in that looping, perfect calligraphy Jenna always loved. My younger sister. For a second. Just a second. I thought maybe this was it. Maybe after everything, they were finally inviting me in. Finally seeing me. But inside, there was no RSVP card. No note. No welcome. Just one line, printed, neatly. Report to the staff parking area upon arrival. I read it twice. Then again. My hands started shaking. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't some logistics mix-up or impersonal formality. That was intentional. A message. I wasn't being invited to the wedding. I was being assigned. Like a job. Like a task. Not as a sister. As background. I sat there in my kitchen for a long time. The kettle had boiled and gone cold. My tea sat untouched. And I just stared at that card, feeling the ache in my chest settle like something too familiar. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just stared. And that's how you know you've been broken too many times. You stop reacting. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. The second choice. The invisible middle space in our family photos. My mother, Marka, never hid the fact that Jenna was her favorite. Jenna had the smile that lit up rooms, the flawless skin, the endless ambition. She was the diamond. I was the backup. Everything I did, Marka measured against Jenna. Even when I worked 2 jobs to pay for college. Even when I launched my little art business from scratch. She'd say things like, "Why don't you dress more like Jenna?" Or, "Your sister's marrying into a real family now, and you're still dipping flowers into glue." Every word was a reminder. I wasn't enough. Not for her. So when that wedding card came and I saw what it really was, I should have tossed it. Should have spared myself more of their cruelty. But I didn't. Some small part of me, some stubborn little ember, still wanted to believe in the possibility that maybe this was a misunderstanding. Or maybe they'd change. But deep down, I knew better. I didn't go for them. I went for me. I needed to see for myself how far they'd go just to erase me. I needed to look that truth in the face. Because no matter how many times they tried to push me aside, I wanted to know, this time, I chose to stand in it, not hide from it. And I had no idea that showing up would turn their perfect wedding day into something they'd never forget. The morning of the wedding came with clear skies and a soft breeze, the kind that usually makes people believe something magical is about to happen. But for me, it felt like the calm before a storm, like nature's way of wrapping a warning in sunshine. I pulled into the long driveway of the venue, a historic estate turned event palace. There were marble fountains, trimmed rose gardens, valet, attendants, and a sea of black SUVs and spotless white limousines. And then there was my 10-year-old sedan, humming like it knew it didn't belong. I'd spent the last 2 weeks sewing my own dress. Nothing flashy, just plum-colored cotton, embroidered by hand at the neckline. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I wanted to look presentable, not to impress anyone, but to remind myself that I was still a person, still worth showing up for. Clutching that cream-colored invitation, I stepped out of my car and walked toward the main entrance. I barely made it past the steps when a man in a black suit blocked my way. He looked me up and down, then pointed at the card in my hand. "Staff?" he asked. I hesitated. "I'm the bride's sister." He didn't even blink. "Staff entrance is around back. Follow the gravel path to the side door." I nodded. My face was burning, but I didn't argue. I just turned and walked. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the ease, like they had already decided what I was worth before I even opened my mouth. The side entrance led to a narrow hallway filled with movement and noise. Chefs shouting, servers rushing past, bouquets being adjusted in frantic hands. I stood still, in the middle of it all, like someone who had wandered onto the wrong set. A young server finally noticed me and checked a clipboard before leading me through the chaos to my assigned spot for the ceremony. It wasn't a seat. It was a standing space, behind a marble pillar, tucked into a far corner of the hall, hidden from the center aisle and the rest of the guests. I couldn't see the vows. I couldn't hear the music clearly, but I could see the people. Rows of shining hair, designer dresses, glinting jewelry, and polished shoes. Everything screamed perfection. And then I saw her. Jenna. She looked like a page out of a wedding magazine. Her dress was pure white, dramatic, tailored like art. The veil swept behind her like a movie scene. And she was glowing, at least on the outside. As she passed me, her eyes met mine. Her lips curled slightly. "Glad you could make it," she whispered, that smirk creeping in. "Just try not to embarrass us this time, Grace. Okay?" I didn't say anything. I just looked away. My throat tightened, and I wasn't sure if I was holding back anger or just trying not to dissolve completely. When the ceremony ended and the guests moved into the ballroom, I followed quietly. My assigned table was near the kitchen door, behind a towering floral arrangement that blocked the view of the dance floor. It felt less like a seat and more like an afterthought. Or maybe that was the point. And then I saw the place setting. While every other table had silver flatware and folded menus on fine china, mine had plastic utensils. On the napkin sat a small handwritten note. "Don't overstep." It was Jenna's handwriting. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just folded the note and slipped it into my clutch. Not to save it, to remember. To remember how far they'd go, just to remind me that I didn't belong. But then something shifted. Across the room, I caught a glimpse of him. Ryan Carter, the groom, Jenna's perfect fiancé. He was standing near the head table, laughing with a group of older men. But then he saw me, and everything stopped. He didn't just glance. He stared. His eyes locked on mine like he'd seen a ghost. His smile vanished. His hand froze on the back of Jenna's chair. His whole body stilled like something he'd buried just resurfaced. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. Because in that one stare, I saw it. Recognition. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Recognition. And suddenly my past, everything I had buried, everything I had forced myself to forget, came rushing back, crashing into the walls of that ballroom with more force than any slap or insult ever could. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Thought maybe I was just overwhelmed, caught in the middle of another one of Jenna's picture-perfect performances. But no. The man standing across the room, Ryan Carter, wasn't just some polished groom-to-be. He was Nick. 12 years ago. He was Nick. My Nick. The boy I met when I was 19. Back when I still believed in things like raw connection and promises that didn't break. We met during a community fundraiser. I was handing out flyers. He was building an app to track local donations. He was quiet, brilliant, with this awkward charm that made you lean in just to hear what he was thinking. We talked about everything: art, social change, how we wanted to build something that actually mattered. We even planned to move to Chicago together. I still remember the bus ticket, still remember standing outside his apartment in the rain, calling his phone over and over. He never answered. One day, he was my whole future. The next, he was just gone. No goodbye, no reason, just silence. And now, here he was, standing at the altar next to my sister, wearing a new name, a new life, and looking at me like I'd crawled out of a memory he never meant to see again. Before I could move, before I could even think, he was walking toward me. Purpose in every step, but hesitation in his eyes. "Grace," he said softly. And just hearing my name in his voice nearly broke something in me. I straightened. "It's been a while," he winced. "I go by Ryan now." Of course he did. He glanced around, then leaned in a little. "Can we talk? Somewhere quiet?" I should have said no, should have turned and walked away. But I didn't. Maybe part of me still needed answers. Maybe I just wanted to hear the truth from the one person who'd left the biggest hole in me. We found a small lounge room tucked behind the ballroom. The music and voices faded as the door shut behind us. I crossed my arms. He stood with his hands in his pockets like he didn't know where to start. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "When I saw your name on the list, I thought it was a mistake." "So you remember my name," I said flatly. He flinched. "Grace, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I didn't just disappear. I was pushed." My stomach knotted. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "It wasn't until last year that I found out the truth," he said. "My father, Martin, he paid someone to keep us apart." I stared at him. "Paid who?" His jaw tightened. "Your mother." Everything in me went still. "No," I whispered. "You're lying. She would never." "She did." His voice cracked a little. "I found the transfers. Payments labeled as education support and relocation assistance, directly from my dad's company to her account. When I confronted him, he told me everything. He said you were a distraction, that I needed to focus on the family, brand, that Jenna was a better fit." I blinked hard, trying to breathe. The scholarship, the sudden push to change schools, the way Marka always called Nick a phase. It all started to line up. The missing puzzle pieces snapping together in the worst possible way. "She told me to forget you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "She told me you didn't care, that I was just a kid who got carried away." I believed her, he admitted, eyes heavy. I was young, confused. And when my father showed me fake emails, messages supposedly from you saying you'd moved on, I didn't know what to believe. I thought maybe I imagined all of it. My hands were shaking now. But I didn't cry. I was too far past that. "My mother didn't just erase my place in her house," I said quietly. "She sold off my heart." He stepped toward me, but I took a step back. "You left?" I said. "And she let you." "I never stopped thinking about you," he said. "Not one day." I looked away. I didn't know what to do with any of this. The pain was old, but now it felt fresh, raw. But one thing was different now. I wasn't that quiet 19-year-old anymore, waiting by the phone or shrinking into silence. I had nothing left to lose. And I was done pretending that their lies didn't matter. That wedding, this whole fantasy they built, was never about love. It was built on erasure. And now I was ready to set the truth on fire. I walked back into that ballroom with my pulse pounding and fire running through my veins. Everything around me looked exactly the same. Chandeliers sparkling, music drifting, people sipping champagne like they were part of some royal fairy tale. But for me, the entire room felt like a stage built on lies, and I was done being the quiet extra in the background. I scanned the room until I saw her. Marka, my mother, laughing near the head table, hand waving toward the dessert cart like she hadn't just orchestrated the betrayal of a lifetime. She looked proud, like she'd won something. I didn't yell. I didn't run. I just walked straight toward her and said her name loud enough for the room to hear. Mom. She turned. Her smile faltered when she saw me. Grace, she said, her voice tight. What are you doing? You're making a scene. I didn't blink. I haven't even started. The room shifted. Conversations paused. A few guests turned to look. The string quartet hesitated, unsure whether to keep playing, but I kept my eyes on her. I need to say something, I said, louder now. My voice shook, but not from fear, from the weight of everything I had carried for too long. Marka moved toward me, whispering sharply, Grace, not here. I pulled my arm back. No, exactly here. And then I faced the room. Years ago, I was in love with someone, I began. We had plans. We had a future. Then one day he disappeared. I thought he left me. I turned and looked directly at her. But he didn't. You did. You took money from Martin Carter to keep us apart. You took a bribe to erase me from his life, so Jenna could have his world instead. There was a sharp inhale from someone nearby. A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. Marka's face turned to stone. That's enough, she said through clenched teeth, but I wasn't done. You pushed me out like I was some obstacle. You used that money to pay for Jenna's dreams while mine were tossed aside. And you let me believe I wasn't worth loving. Her hand moved fast. I didn't even see it coming. The slap landed hard. My head turned with the force of it. The room went dead silent. I turned back slowly. My cheek burned. But I stood tall. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look sorry. Just stunned that I hadn't backed down. I'm done, I said softly, with pretending, with shrinking, with swallowing pain just so you can play perfect. I looked toward the head table. Ryan was already standing, his eyes locked on me, wide with fury and something deeper. Resolve. He stepped forward and spoke, loud and clear. I believe her. All heads turned, every word. He looked at Jenna, who stood frozen next to the cake. This wedding is off. The words hit the room like an earthquake. Glasses clinked. Someone gasped out loud. Jenna jolted like she'd been slapped. What? She choked. Ryan, you can't. After everything, I can, he said. And I will. Because this was never about love. It was built on lies. And I won't spend the rest of my life pretending this is something it's not. Jenna's face twisted. So you're throwing me away for her? After everything I gave up? He shook his head slowly. No. You threw yourself away the moment you stood by and let all of this happen. She let out a sharp cry, grabbed her bouquet from the table, and hurled it in my direction. It missed, crashing into the side of the champagne tower. Glass shattered across the floor. People screamed. A staff member ran toward the mess with a towel. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just stood there, hand on my cheek, the sting still fresh. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The room descended into chaos. Guests whispering, phones coming out, some people awkwardly slipping out the doors, others just staring, unsure of what they had just witnessed. The music stopped completely. The weight of truth had hit everyone. Jenna stood in the middle of it all, makeup smudging, breathing hard, looking like a child who had just broken her favorite toy and didn't know how to fix it. And me? I wasn't angry. I was awake. In the days that followed, everything unraveled, just not for me. For once, I was the one watching from a distance while someone else's world fell apart. Marka was the first to feel it. The same family members she used to brag to, the ones she paraded Jenna in front of like a trophy, stopped returning her calls. She was quietly uninvited from 2 weddings that year. And at my cousin's retirement party, where she had all but written her own speech to deliver, they gave the mic to someone else. She stood in the back of the room, smiling through her teeth like none of it bothered her. But I knew better. I'd spent most of my life perfecting that same smile. Jenna didn't fare much better. Her dream wedding became the local scandal of the year. There were whispers at charity events. The partnerships she was chasing dried up. She tried to go on a date with some up-and-coming tech exec, but the moment he brought up the wedding incident, she shut it down. That image of her, screaming in a ballroom, mascara running, bouquet flying, stuck, and not in the way she'd hoped. She called me twice, once angry, once crying. I didn't pick up either time. I didn't need to. I wasn't interested in revenge. I just wanted peace. And silence, I learned, is its own kind of justice. So I went back to the only place that ever felt like mine. My little cottage, my studio. The space filled with dried petals and pressed memories. Orders started trickling in again. Brides who wanted to preserve their bouquets. Families who wanted to hold on to one last thing from someone they'd lost. Not grand or flashy, but meaningful, honest. Then one day Ryan called. No pressure, no expectations. Just asked if I'd meet him for coffee. I almost said no. But something in me didn't want to hide anymore. Not from him. Not from the past. So I said yes. We met at the old lakeside cafe. The same one where we used to scribble business ideas on napkins like they were blueprints for a better world. He didn't pretend like nothing happened. He didn't try to fix it all in one conversation. He just listened, asked questions, let me talk. And for the first time in a long time, I felt heard. It wasn't about picking up where we left off. That version of us was gone. What we were building now was something entirely new. Grounded, wiser, softer. And somewhere in that healing, something opened up in me. I started telling my story, not to tear anyone down, but to lift others up. I spoke at a local women's shelter, then at a community college, then at a nonprofit conference. Women came up to me afterward, tears in their eyes, telling me they'd felt invisible too, like they'd been cut out of their own lives by the people who were supposed to love them most. That's when I launched the Grace Initiative, a nonprofit for women who'd been silenced, dismissed, or pushed to the margins. We offered workshops, grants, even safe spaces to just be heard. Ryan helped with the funding, but the vision, the mission, that was mine. He never tried to take it from me. In fact, he told me once, I might have built companies, Grace, but you build people. That stuck with me. I think about all the times I was made to feel like I didn't belong, like I was some extra body in the background of their perfect lives. And now I know better. They tried to cut me out of the photo, so I built my own frame. Ryan and I didn't rush anything. We didn't pretend we could erase the past or patch it up like it had never happened. We sat with it, talked through it. Sometimes we argued, sometimes we fell quiet, and sometimes we just let the silence speak for us. What we were building wasn't a second chance at the past. It was a first chance at something real. We took long walks without always needing words. We shared coffee without filling every space with conversation. And somehow, those quiet moments became the loudest kind of healing. He didn't try to save me. He didn't need to. I had already done that for myself. What he did was show up. Gently. Consistently. With presence instead of promises. Months later, on a soft spring evening, we stood in the garden behind my cottage. Wildflowers grew wherever they pleased. No arches, no photographers. Just a handful of people who knew us, really knew us. My mentor from the art center, a friend from the women's group, a neighbor who used to drop off lemon cake when business was slow. That was it. Ryan wore a pale gray suit. I wore the soft blue dress I had once been too afraid to wear, the one I made with my own hands, the one I now wore without apology. We stood beneath the open sky as the sun dipped low, and we exchanged vows we had written ourselves. No scripts, no rehearsed lines, just truth. He held my hands and said, "I don't promise perfection, but I promise presence, growth, and honesty, every day." I smiled through tears and said, "I won't shrink again. Not for love, not for anyone. Because now I know, love should never ask you to disappear." When the words were spoken and we were told we were husband and wife, there was no applause, just silence. Peaceful, whole silence, the kind that fills a space like sunlight. Marka and Jenna, they faded like background noise, still around somewhere, but no longer close enough to touch me, no longer able to rewrite the story I'd taken back for myself. Their names didn't hold weight in my chest anymore. Just dust. Just distance. I'm still Grace Walker, still living in a quiet town, still pressing petals and preserving stories, still healing. But now, I don't whisper my worth. I wear it. If my story made you feel seen or reminded you of your own strength, tell me below. I'd love to hear your voice in this space. And if you're new here, join us. Subscribe for more stories that don't just entertain, they reveal. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak the truth out loud.